Hello, everyone. This is Jessica Pettit, and who do I have the privilege of interviewing today?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Magill. I'm co-founder and COO of Alaria and co-founder of ARC.
Excellent. We're very excited to talk to you. And unlike some of my interviews of dear friends of mine, Lisa, we don't even know each other, but we are getting to know each other right now. Welcome to our first icebreaker date.
Thank you.
Thanks for being part of this not podcast thing. I'm not a techie person, so I refuse to call it a podcast. And we're now in our fourth season, so it's becoming a thing. So, are you ready for two open-ended, giant concept questions that are rolling around in my head?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Great. There's no wrong answers, but I want to talk to people about the concept of diversity dividend.
Okay.
This really comes up in my world at the end when people are like, well, why did we do this? What's the point of doing this? So thinking about investment, action, return, diversity dividend, what does it mean to you?
Diversity dividend. Interesting. So to me, I think that the whole mission and the whole reason that my team and myself does what we do is to drive change in the world. And so hopefully the dividend of this work and broad diversity and inclusion work ends up being a more equitable and inclusive society. And so if at all possible, if successful in what we're doing, I would seek to measure that as the dividend and reward for the work that we're doing.
That's rad. So we are going to talk more about measurements because I believe, if I may, I'm going to call you a measurement wonk. And
I'll wear that hat proudly.
Perfect. But before we do, the other open-ended question is about asterisks, other duties assigned. So there's a pattern kind of evolving of some duties that you're not rewarded for, maybe emotional labor, may lead you directly to burnout. But there's other asterisks, other duties assigned that you volunteer for that's kind of self-care and building your own community and doing the extra things that you like to do. In your personal work history, how has asterisks, other duties assigned shown up?
That's a phenomenal question. I think in terms of diversity and inclusion work, I'm in a unique scenario as I'm not actually, head of D&I at a company and responsible for those changes just within one company. Rather, I'm a solutions provider, right? But when you talk about how that's trickled out or like shown up in my life otherwise, I think that it's a theme that is common. I think that no matter what my job has been over the time of my career, I've always invested in building community, building out programs and solutions to empower women, attending events actively, networking, and doing my best to always help empower others and mentor, right? So I think that no matter my job, whether it was when it was in finance or software startups or now in diversity and inclusion, there's always that extra labor in terms of making sure that you are helping those that need to be helped, but also making sure that you're prepared to take on future challenges in your own life. And I think that it's a necessary evil in my mind, but certainly something we don't get paid to do. But hopefully, my personal hope is that extra work pays off in the long term and that it allows me bigger opportunities or the ability to make a bigger impact.
Excellent. Well, speaking of necessary evil, one of the things that I got super excited about interviewing you as compared to other people I've interviewed is that you were like on point, up front and center about the importance of quantifying diversity and inclusion metrics, measuring progress, measuring impact in all kinds of scientific wonky kind of ways, which generally as a ceramics major, I would say is a necessary evil. Talk to me about your journey. What do you do? Why do you continue doing what you're doing? Because what we do is so hard. I just can't wait to learn about it. Go. Yay.
Oh, thank you. So what's interesting about what we do is we are specifically out in the world trying to cause diversity and inclusion to be recognized as a field of study. My business partner, Paulo Gaudiano, has a career in complexity science and leverages his experience in that specific type of science and research with a combination of behavioral sciences and software simulation. So lots of geeky stuff here. We combine all of that to really look at diversity and inclusion in a new way. And that new way is is something that actually is common sense. It's that we look at it with a human-centric lens. We're looking at what is happening on a day-to-day basis with individuals and what are the outcomes of those interactions. You know, why are employees unhappy within your organization? How can we make them more productive? And by looking at inclusion as a way of empowering your employees to do more and a way to increase their happiness within their roles and their day-to-day jobs, we're able to also tie it to potential outcomes. And so when I talk about measuring inclusion, we're leveraging those ideas, the idea of, I guess it's theoretically we're leveraging complexity science, behavioral science, software simulations, but like we're also just using these ways of thinking of inclusion to understand what could potentially happen if we empower our employees in the right way, if we create environments that make them comfortable. And we've kind of built frameworks around that and software simulations that help people understand what the potential outcomes could be if they just adjust a few levers within their company. And so that's all the geeky stuff that we do. And at the nonprofit, which is ARC, it stands for Alaria Research Corp. We conduct research in partnership with foundations and government to help other organizations understand how to apply these frameworks that we've developed to different instances or applications of inclusion. On the for-profit side at Alaria, we are coming into organizations and we're not only laying the foundational knowledge, helping them understand how to think of inclusion, how to define inclusion, how it links to their core business performance metrics, but we're also then looking to understand what's going on a daily basis within their organization and helping them pinpoint where they should focus to be able to truly move the needle in terms of inclusion within their organization and derive the benefits that they have access to in doing so.
What I really love about that, and I'm learning about all of this now, is that I'm so used to and hate this tactic of case studies of when, like, the shit has hit the fan, exhibit A, exhibit B, this fan is broke, right? Like, but what I really liked what you said about a positive possibility simulation allows people to see, going back to diversity dividends, allows people to see what they don't even know is possible because we have all worked in such exclusive, oppressive places of working that it takes that case study and flips it around. Thank goodness for some wonks.
Yes, agreed. We need some new approaches, right? Whether it's ours or another. What's been happening for years and years is just not moving the needle quick enough. It's not creating the opportunities that individuals deserve within their, jobs. I mean, we spend so much time at work, so much of our living hours working, and why not be able to enjoy it in the process? And companies benefit from having employees that are happy as well. So it's one of those things. It's a huge mystery. It's like, why don't we solve this problem? All of us benefit along the way, and hopefully, and by helping people understand inclusion and understanding that by creating goals that are in line with inclusion rather than diversity. So, I guess sidebar really quickly, our organization, we truly believe that inclusion is what needs to be focused on. Inclusion unlocks access to diversity. It allows you to drive business performance. And so by focusing on inclusion, you're able to reap the benefits of diversity. You're able to deserve to have diverse teams and, amazing talent. And so we help them understand how that all works and how to connect those dots in a way that's going to be meaningful. But yes, I think it's there's a lot of work to be done, but we have to change the way that we think about diversity and inclusion and how we approach it in order to truly change business leaders' mindsets and what they're actually doing about it.
Right. It's a very interesting segue to one of my favorite questions, and that is, what have you changed your mind about lately?
Oh, that's a very good question. Wow, I feel taken away here. One of the things that I've
switched favorite Ben and Jerry's lately. Just to be clear, like I was a fish food diehard, and I went to the late night one recently because they didn't have fish food, and I might have changed my mind about where I go.
I recently found in the realm of ice cream, I'm more of a Talenti gelato pint kind of person, but recently discovered the Tillamook brand. It's like a cheese brand that's come out with ice cream, and they're amazing. So I hear you there. But in terms of personally things that I've changed my mind around, I think I'm starting to shift a mindset that I'm kind of known for. I travel a lot. I spend a lot of time on the road and in airplanes, and love adventure and work remote. And I'm just an avid believer in flexibility and work-life balance and all of these things. But I think I may have recently found that I need to find a better balance myself in terms of downtime and in terms of stability in processes and just my daily routine. I've kind of taken a step back and started looking internally at, okay, Lisa, what can we do to get back into so you're not so much all over the place and so unorganized here, and really get a hold of taking care of myself as a priority. Things like working out and eating meals at a decent hour, things like that really have to happen. And I think that I guess the idea that has changed is that I really need to maybe relook at how much I'm on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting when different life markers happen. I just this weekend, so if it's helpful, I'm 45. I've been doing this for 15 years. And I guess like a month ago, my partner came up with the brilliant novel idea of just blocking my weekends on my calendar. And I remember thinking like, I'm going to lose a ton of money. And I went and looked, and like magically there were some weekends that were just blank.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, let's see how this works. I did it. This weekend, I watched the entire first season of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Well, that is a great way to spend a weekend. Could not think of a better way.
I also discovered a new ice cream. It was a big weekend. I did a load of laundry somewhere in there. And so then yesterday I was preparing to go on this trip that I'm on. I'm obviously in a hotel. And so yesterday I was like, oh my gosh, I have to pack. I have to do this. I have to do this. I'd only been home for like 4 days. Everything was, all I needed really to do was remember to put more Q-tips in my toiletry. Fine.
You're used to it.
Fine. Nobody flipped out. The only person who was flipping out was me. Yeah. And I think sometimes that's the mind shift, right? So what do you absolutely know?
Oh, well, This again feels like a trick question. You're loaded with trick questions. Do I absolutely know? Well, the first thing that comes to mind right now is I absolutely know that I will never be done learning. It's one of those things that I had to communicate to someone recently. Someone that a mentee of mine was talking about how she's about to graduate from school and she's so excited to just apply everything she's learned. And it was one of those like revealing moments when I was talking to her. It was like self-reflection within communicating to her about her ideas, right? Where I realized that it's so much the case that you never stop learning. And if you do, you kind of, it's not healthy, right? And so in order to continue to become a better person and continue to help create a better world, and in order to just keep up with day-to-day things, you have to always be interested and curious in learning, and we can't ever give that up. And so, the one thing I know is that everyone has to just keep learning always and remain curious.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh no, more questions. Yes.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so there's 3 numbers that you've picked out of my icebreaker cards, 14, 22, and 47. So they could be easy, intermediate, or deep. You have to answer them off the top of your head. So first one is number 14, which is an easy one. What was your first pet or first pet you knew? Name, type, breed, personality traits, etc.
I know that we had a dog prior to this, but unfortunately I was too young to remember his name. But the first one that I remember vividly was a dog who we called Wags. Don't know why, but he was kind of a wiener style dog and had like this one brown spot on his back. And we had him while I lived in Utah. And I'm not sure what happened to Wags, but that's really sad. But that's the first pet I remember having.
That's so funny. I feel terrible saying this, not that dogs have any less value than humans, but there are people that when did we stop talking? Like we were friends in like 6th grade, and now like many decades later, I'm like, oh, I don't even know what happened to them. Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those things I'll tell my sister and she'll be like, oh, this is what happened. My sister has an incredible memory for these things. I just don't.
Do not. All right. Number 22, intermediate. What is something that has happened in your life that has defined who you are?
TMI maybe, but when I was 18, my parents went to prison. And so that's a bold thing to say without context, but I have 4 little sisters, and it truly defined my identity in the world. I kind of took ownership of them. I grew up very quickly. I learned to overcome barriers and to not give a crap about what people thought I was capable or not capable of. And so, yeah, that's one defining moment, and the one defining moment that really comes to mind.
It's fascinating, and without you having to disclose any additional information, I do think that this is important. That I was doing a leadership training once in Texas, and it was like a canned curriculum that I was facilitating, and it was great curriculum. I worked with them for years. It was wonderful. And one of the ethics case studies, back to case studies, was about Enron. So, I'm going through the curriculum, doing those kind of things, and one of the college student participants, raised their hands, and the main Enron guy, who was like the focus of the case study, whose name would be very helpful for me to remember right now, it was his son.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's my dad. And it has been, it's fascinating to me, especially those of us that do D&I work, that like we talk about the industrialized prison complex, and we talk about white collar crime and blue collar crime, and what does this mean, and injustice around who does or doesn't actually serve time and fines and all this kind of stuff. And then we completely forget often in our examples of who can be in the audience and what that means. Whether they themselves are felons, people in their lives they've been exonerated. There's all different kinds of things that I think we forget about. So
I think a lot of times, particularly with case studies, we forget that that they're about real people.
Right. Right.
And that, that's, statistically, you probably know someone that every, stereotype fits. And yes, I think it's very important to remember that it's human.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Okay, the last one is deep.
No.
No.
Deeper? No, just kidding.
I think this might be better than the last one for you. So, given the ability, in what Olympic sport would you most want to compete?
Oh, this one's easy for me. I would say gymnastics. Fun fact, I lived in Panama for a number of years. My parents were in the Air Force, and maybe like when I was 2 to 6, I believe I was in Panama. And during that time, I trained under a former Olympic athlete for gymnastics. And I was just 2 to 5. Like, it didn't really matter much. I was just taking gymnastics classes. But in my mind, I was going to be a big star. And I continue to be amazed by the gymnasts that exist in this world, and the idols and role models that they're becoming to young girls.
So true. Just out of curiosity, did your time in Panama and gymnastics intersect with WAGs?
It did not. We got WAGs just after that, when we came back to the States.
Just fact-checking, as you will.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for answering my possibly random and disjointed questions. I think
my pleasure.
The coolest thing about having these little mini conversations is that we are all technically under the same umbrella, and yet do such completely different work. And if we weren't all doing the work that we are doing, I don't know that we'd ever make any change. So Lisa, thank you for what you do. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
You can check out Alaria's website, alaria.tech, or email me, lisa@alaria.tech.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you.